let's talk a little bit about functions, and then we're going to go through those questions, and then I'm going to make you redo those sets of questions, and we're going to keep doing them until it is bright blue. And I'm only going to help you in the first set. So you have to learn what I'm teaching you now first. Okay, so we're going to talk about the way functions work. So, and I'm going to do this really simply. Let's say I have that linear function.
How on earth would you do that without graphing into a calculator?
We're not going to graph it.
I'm saying, how on earth would you do that?
Okay, I will answer your question, but then we're going to do what I want to do.
Okay.
This is another way of saying y. Those two things are the exact same thing. So I can rewrite this equation like this. Okay? So the general equation for a line is y is equal to mx plus b.
Okay.
This is your starting point. So if I'm trying to graph the line, this is your y-intercept. So I'm going to go up to where y is equal to 5.
Okay.
The m is the number that is in front of the x. What number is there?
1.
So that tells you how to draw the line. So I'm going to write 1 as a fraction. This is telling me to go up 1 and over to the right 1. So I would go up 1 over to the right 1 and put a dot. And then I would go up 1 over to the right 1 and put a dot. Or this is saying we're going to go down 1 into the left 1.
Okay.
You can do it either way because this is equal to negative 1 over negative 1. What's negative 1 divided by negative 1?
1.
1. So I can go the opposite direction. I can go down 1 over to the left 1. Down 1 over to the left 1. And so my line looks like that.
Okay.
That's how you graph it.
All right, cool.
But we're not graphing, we're talking about functions. So I don't care about graphing. I want to know how this works mathematically. So I'm going to erase all this. But now you have it in your notes. Another way of looking at this is the number that I plug in and when I plug the number in, the whole thing is whatever the answer is.
Okay.
So if I'm doing f of 0, that's another way of saying that that's the x. And then it's going to generate some answer. So I put in 0 plus 5. And so f of 0 is equal to 5.
Okay.
So when you're saying f of 0 is some number, that's saying that you plug something into this equation in order to get that number.
Okay.
So if I write f of 3, what would that be equal to?
8.
Because you just plug it in.
Yeah.
So anything that's inside the parentheses there gets plugged into the equation, wherever that letter is.
I was getting that. It was just like all of it.
Shh. I'm starting slow.
Okay, gotcha.
Okay? Because obviously there's some confusion there. So we want to figure out where the confusion is. So I'm going to start like you don't know anything.
Got it.
So I just need you to follow.
Okay.
Okay.
I know nothing.
You know nothing.
I know nothing. Got it.
So how would I do that?
Plug in 2 for all the x's.
Okay, so do it.
So 3 parentheses 2 minus 6. I'm just gonna 4 times 2
Do the math.
So 3 times 4 be 12. Minus 8. Minus 16. That's 12 minus negative 12 minus 24. That'd be negative 12.
Okay? So what if I did this? I better use one that I know I can get the answer for. Let's do this. I'm going to just change this equation just a little bit. Oh, I meant to change that number. Let's say this is my f of x.
Okay.
And I'm going to say that f of x is equal to 0. And now I want you to find what x is. How would you do that?
Set it equal to 0, right?
Right. So set it equal to 0.
3x squared minus 2x minus 16 equals 0.
Because that's basically telling you that the whole thing is equal to that number. So I'm not substituting in for x, I'm going backwards, right? So what would x be equal to? How would you do that?
So add 16 both sides?
Nope.
No.
This is a quadratic. How do you always solve a quadratic? What is that dreaded F word that you can't stand in math?
Frequently plug in the calculator. Factor.
Thank you. So factor that. How would you factor that? Take a deep breath. That's good. That's good. That's good.
All right,
Get rid of the anxiety. Take a deep breath.
So you got x. No, never mind. Okay, hold on here. So
how many times have we done this? A lot.
I don't know.
The first step.
What times what is 16?
No. When you have a number up front, you're getting close though.
Okay.
You always take those two numbers and multiply them together. You make a field goal. Remember that?
Oh yeah.
And so, what number is that for that field goal?
That would be 48.
Negative.
Yeah.
48. And now we start that process. So what times what
equals negative 48.
Equals negative 48.
Which gives you.
And what
plus what
equals
negative 2.
Yes.
What time? What?
I'll let you marinate on that for a second.
Yeah. Marinate the brain. My brain's not a steak.
I'm going to need the space over here.
Now you can remedy all my mistakes.
Okay, let's go through them. 1 times what is 48?
48.
2 times what is 48?
24.
3 times what is 48? We just did that one.
Oh, 16.
4 times what is 48?
12.
6 times what is 48?
7. No, not 7. 8.
When the numbers get really close to one another, I know that I'm done factoring, right?
Yeah.
So it's got to be one of those, because this thing does factor. So which one of those can I combine together so I get negative 2? Either making them plus or minus.
6 and 8.
6 and 8. 6 and 8. And the rule is the biggest number always has the same sign as the middle term.
Okay.
Right? That's the rule. So when I factor this, I'm going to do it right here. I get x
Negative 8 times
minus 8 and
x plus 6.
so now I have to divide. So I'm going to take this front number and I'm going to slide and divide it with those two numbers. Remember that?
Yeah.
So we do, right?
Yeah, then it's like 3x minus 8. It doesn't go in, right?
Well, we're solving this, right? So I'm just going to leave it like that. So this is going to be x is equal to the opposite sign, which is 8 over 3.
Okay.
And then this one is
2.
That's a positive 2, so when you actually solve for it.
2.
So now we have our two answers.
Alright.
So when they say f of x is equal to some number, that number goes on the other side of the equal sign and you actually solve. When they say f of a number is what it's equal to, then you plug it inside. So this is always going to be the stuff you plug in, and the number on the outside is going to be the stuff that it's equal, that the whole equation is equal to.
Okay. Alright, you're good.
Okay, so here's the next step. What if I now have two functions? I'll just do it that way for now. If I'm going to do a composite function, this is the way you write it. You write f of g of x. Okay?
Okay.
And when you're doing a composite function, you always solve for the second one first, and then you plug that into the first one. So here's another way of writing it. F of g of x. Okay?
Yep.
So if I want to find f of g of 7, I'm going to make this 3 because I want it to work out nice and easy. All right? Then the first thing that I have to find is g of 7. What is g of 7?
For this one right here?
Mm-hmm.
26.
And then that 26 gets plugged in for the answer for x. So now I need to find, because
13.
f of g of 7 just became f of 26.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's equal to what?
13.
So you solve for 1 first, you find the answer, you plug that answer into the second one.
Got it.
So if I were to do g of f of x, how would that change if I did f of 2?
Then you simply plug it into the g function. So it'd be 11.
Look at how I wrote it this time. Which one is second?
That f.
The f is second, right?
Yeah.
So what would I have to do first?
You plug it into the the f function.
You have to plug it into f first because it's written second.
So, yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
So what is that equal to?
So that'd be 1.
So f of 2 is equal to 1.
Mm-hmm.
and then G of f of 2 then becomes G of 1. And what's G of 1 equal to?
8.
See how that works?
Yeah.
So that's kind of the next level of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
You always do the second one first, find the answer, and then plug that into the first one.
Okay.
Okay, so now we're going to actually deal with the stuff you're actually going to see on the SAT, which is the next level up.
Okay.
But it's the exact same process. You solve for the second one first, and then solve for the first one last. So let's look at the actual question. Uh-oh. That's not good. And I'm going to go back to the first one you missed. Okay, so I really hate when I do that. Function notation. And then we want to go to this review these answers. I want to just click on that one. All right. So write those two things down for me so I can copy them. Okay, I'm going to do this two different ways. So, I'm going to show it to you in a different way. So, my h of x is equal to negative x plus 5.
Okay.
And my g of t, notice that's a different letter, is equal to t
Plus 4.
plus 4
H of 2.
times h of t.
And I'm pretty sure I already know my mistake for this one. What I did.
And this is g of h of 8. They want to know what that's equal to, right? Let me go back and look.
G of h of 8. I think so. Yeah. That's it. Yeah.
Okay. So the first thing that we have to do is figure out what this is equal to, right?
Yep.
Another way of writing this is writing g of t. You see how those two things are the same thing?
Yeah.
So whatever g of t is, that's equal to h of 8. So let's find out what h of 8 is equal to. H of 8 is equal to negative 3, because I'm just going to plug that in. So that means that this t then is equal to negative 3,
yeah.
right? Because I'm substituting that in, because those two things are the same thing, right? So now my new function becomes g of negative 3 is equal to negative 3 times 4 times h of negative 3, right?
Mm-hmm.
But now, do I know what h of negative 3 is equal to?
Yes.
Have I plugged in negative 3 into this equation yet?
Oh, no, that's what I did wrong. All right, yeah. No, you have not.
So I have to go back and do it again, right? You see how that all got substituted in, right?
Yes.
So what is h of negative 3?
8 positive 8.
So that means that this thing is equal to 8.
I thought I was doing wrong. These things right here were throwing me off.
Doing that second step?
I don't know why. But I think I was plugging in like g of h of 8. I think I was putting in h of 8 for that and then plugging it in that way.
Do you see how now you have to
Yeah.
go back? You see how this is the same thing as t, right?
This is going to correlate to that, which is then going to correlate to that, which is going to make the whole thing come out.
But you see how I wrote it out, right? And I wrote it out step by step so you could see it.
Yeah.
That shows you this step,
yeah.
right? This shows you that that's equal to t, because that's where the t is and that's where the h of 8 is.
Mm-hmm.
And so you do that, which is what? 32 minus 3, which is 29. So I'm going to write out the next one. You're going to do all the rest of them and correct the ones you missed. So write that down. It's the exact same process each and every time for every single one of these questions. So if you get the first one, you should be able to get all the rest of them.
Yeah.
Why did you erase it? Why didn't you just get another sheet of paper? Why'd you? What you doing? You write it down so I can record it. So we have h of t
equal to 4g minus 4g squared minus g. And then we have g of x equals 3x cubed plus 2x squared minus 5x minus 1 minus 5h of x.
Okay. So, what are they actually asking us for? Is it g of h of 1?
Yeah.
Okay, so where do we start?
H of plug in 1 as t. So it would be 4 minus 1 would be 3. Yep.
Okay.
Then you plug in the 3.
So this is g of
3.
And this is, what is x equal to then?
3, right?
So what would x be equal to here?
3.
See how that switched now?
Yep.
Do I know what g of 3 is?
G of 3?
Or h, sorry, do I know what h of 3 is?
Not yet. I'm going to plug it in there.
So what's h of 3?
24.
Try that again.
3 squared is 9, 9 times 4.
It's 36.
Oh yeah, 36, and then minus 3 is 33.
Okay. So this thing then is equal to 33, right? That whole thing is equal to 33, right? So let's plug in. So g of 3 would be equal to what then?
3 times 3 squared cubed, sorry, plus 3 times 3 squared minus 5 times 3 minus 1 minus 5 times 33. That would end up being 9 times, no, 27 times 3, 81 plus 9, okay. 15 minus 1, and then minus 5 times 60. 160, okay. So then just add them, 81 plus 27, 15, negative 16, negative 165, so that'd be plus 16. 181, negative 181 plus 108, and that would be negative 69. No, what am I doing? Hold on. It's 81 minus 8. Negative 73, 93. Wait,
What is it? Is it 73 or 93?
I don't know, but you're right there. I think it's, let's say 73. Because it's definitely not 93 because I'd be going up.